what was it that got you into horses?
I grew up with them.
Yeah.
I thought everybody, when I went to school, when I was 5 or 6, whatever, and started school, I thought everybody had one in their backyard. And so I was one of those lucky ones that,
Yeah.
got to have them around me all the time. Um, and when I was a kid and growing up on a farm, I just thought it was the babysitter.
Yeah.
I just, as a school age elementary kid, I would go out and I would lay on the back of my horse and be turned around and have a book on his bum while he ate grass. And I just thought that's what every kid did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was lucky that way. So it wasn't until, much later in my education and finding out that that wasn't, it became a passion for me to want to share that.
Yeah.
Because what a connection.
Yeah.
I just automatically assumed that's what life was.
Right. What is connection? What is that bond between?
There's different types of connection.
Right.
And the connection that I like to focus on has to do with coming from the horse's point of view. And it's an internal connection.
Mm-hmm.
So you can connect by putting a piece of equipment on your horse and riding your horse. And that's a very mechanical connection.
Right.
But it's a totally different definition.
Mm-hmm.
It's a physical connection.
Right.
And to get an internal connection with your horse, you have to develop a relationship.
Yeah.
So that's the one that I like to show people and show them that this being has a mind of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And that you do need to earn it.
Yeah. How do you earn it? What does that mean? What does that look like?
Oh, it has to do a lot with kindness and compassion, but it also has to do with boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
We're squishy.
Yeah.
We can get hurt.
Yeah.
And so we have to have good, solid boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And so assertiveness is not the same as aggressiveness. And they respect the ability for a human to kindly and fairly, have boundaries.
Right.
But at the same time, be there for them. So you have to build a trust with them.
Yeah.
And when they give over their hearts, they give over everything. I've had horses protect me. I've had horses jump in front of things for me.
Yes.
And
so have I.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's the connection
definitely
I would like to go for. Yeah.
Yeah. That bond. I think to your point, there's a physical component where we can connect physically. There's boundaries. And I think the point that you brought up about the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. And I've noticed humans stepping into this new understanding of boundaries and connection. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I'll say boundaries are the precursor to connection. And you get this look of confusion.
When you come up to a horse, the first thing you want to do is ask him, can we be together?
Right.
There's days where they may walk off.
Yeah.
And there's days where they still have to come to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where that comes out.
Yeah.
That is part of the relationship with the horse is that,
yes.
Every horse, for years and years, I ran a lesson program. Mm-hmm. So I got to watch and see how lesson horses adapt to each person because they learned what that person's boundaries were and what they could do. I'd have the same horse pushing around one person and they're like, they won't stop. And then I'd have the horse completely standing still, comfortable, head down, ears floppy with another person.
Right.
And it's because they learn those boundaries. They're very accepting to the idea of knowing where they stand in the world.
And that each individual has different boundaries. They learn that in their herd. The different horses in the herd have different boundaries, and they themselves have different boundaries. And if we learn what their boundaries are and what their expectations are of us, and we can reciprocate that these are my boundaries. And that builds that connection and that bond because there's clarity.
There is clarity.
It's not.
That's probably the biggest thing is that they really appreciate clear rules.
Right. Right.
And
it's not like today you can bite on my sleeve and tomorrow you can't, and only on Tuesdays.
Oh, no, there has to be so much consistency.
Right.
And there has to be consistency with variety.
Right.
So it has that same rule or boundary or both has to be applied in many different situations.
Right. Correct.
I mean, in the horse world, we call that exposure.
Yes.
So
yes,
that also develops a trust in the handler. Mm-hmm. And, in the partner that they're with, because they know that they can be safe.
Right.
A horse's main concern is safety.
Right.
And so learning how to work with a horse and how to help them feel like they're safe crosses the threshold into how we relate to one another as humans.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
internal connection is extremely important.
Mm-hmm. For establishing safety and trust.
Yeah.
Through clarity, through boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Use of force gets brought up, and I know it's brought up with humans as well as with horses.
Mm-hmm.
When we reset a boundary that's been crossed, big conversation I like to have with people where emotions tends to sort of create challenges for us is where that emotion leads us to overshoot the mark.
Yeah.
So
undershoot it.
Or undershoot it. Yes. So if we can fall in the middle of resetting the boundary without retaliation, without anger, without aggression, and or if we can advocate for ourselves and stand up with confidence to maintain a boundary without allowing it to be violated and pushed in constantly. There's this dance of not too much and not too little to keep boundaries.
That becomes the difference between correction and redirection.
Yeah.
And I absolutely preach redirection.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the energy is coming at something or the response is a response that you didn't want,
Mm-hmm.
give them something else to do.
Right.
I mean, remember that horses are toddlers.
Yes.
And if your toddler, you take warm cookies out of the oven and the oven is still hot and your toddler starts coming over to the cookies and they're going to touch that hot stuff, you turn around and go, there's a coloring book over there.
Mm-hmm.
And you just redirect their energy.
Find something else to do. Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting after them because they didn't know why they were.
Right.
They thought cookies.
Right.
They were having a joyful moment of anticipation.
I think that's a hard one for people with horses. They seem to be okay with humans, but with horses, they don't understand there's not a malicious intent behind the horse's behavior. They're not out to cause an issue for you. No. It's not personal.
It's their safety.
It's their safety. It's their
and resources.
Yeah.
Safety and resources. What they're after.
Yeah, for sure. Very true. So, kind of in that, along the line of that topic, to then create connection with an animal that is bigger than we are, is more interested in safety and resources, right? But does seek connection. It is a herd animal. It is looking for some sort of bond with others.
And we do too.
As
pack animals.
Yes. So. Yeah, we are seeking out the collective very often.
Yes.
And horses do not like to be solo, and humans don't thrive as solo either. So we're wired to desire that that coming together, whether that's physical or internal, emotional, or whatever that is, and seeking that connection from others. It then is about how do we find that connection and how do we create that connection.
It's important as a human to know yourself. When you are approaching these animals, in any flight animal actually, to know yourself.
Right.
Having an understanding and awareness of how you're presenting yourself is really important. And that's the kind of stuff we can take back to our daily lives.
Right. And that's what
they're honest. Horses are way honest. If they don't like what you have to say, they're going to walk away. Yeah. They're going to leave you. Sometimes with dust.
Yeah. Sometimes rapidly.
Rapidly.
Yeah. No, and that's and that's what we are teaching in our clinic is about, we start out
but you come up and present them with safety and compassion and fairness.
Right.
I want to say the word kindness, but kindness is a very ambiguous definition.
Yeah.
And so fairness is much better because in fairness, we have to think about the other person.
Right.
We have to think about the other being that we are conversing with, relating to.
Right.
And so in fairness, they understand that as well.
Right.
And so how we present ourselves is huge.
And in our clinic, we talk about that first day we spend really working on ourselves and how are we showing up and what is the story we're telling ourselves and how do we connect back to the moment and to ourselves and how do we view the horse less as a tool or object for our purposes and more as a sentient being that we are choosing to connect with and bond with and create relationship with.
Oh, and some of the changes seen in people on that first day, and being able to be aware, it's empowering.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like giving you tools.
I was surprised hearing about, when we came together and did this last time, I didn't know the history of any of these individuals or their horses, and you did know the relationship between them and some of the history these horses had prior.
Right.
So, and thankfully you didn't share any of that with me, because when we went through the events on Friday with my herd, and then Saturday they brought their horses in, seeing how they were bonding with their horses and breathing through it and finding congruence and connecting to their horse internally, and really, without that agenda, there was a huge shift in how they were showing up and how they were able to accomplish the tasks that they did want to accomplish.
Yes.
And then to hear later be like, this horse would get kicked out of clinics because it was considered dangerous, and just those kinds of things. I was like, wow. So there is the elasticity, I guess. The beauty of being present in the moment creates this elasticity for us. We're not always the one thing that we were in the past. This happened in the past. This is not happening right now today. Right. And we can't carry that forward. Kind of like what you're talking about. Just leave that at the gate. Be present in the moment. Right. Be here right now with this moment, with this horse, in the way you are showing up and they are showing up right now.
And then you have the ability to truly be congruent.
Yes. Yeah. Being fully present in the moment is so important. And that's the way horses thrive, is right now. They're not dwelling on the past. They're not worrying about the future. They're here right now. And they're 100% invested in the current moment.
I do want to clarify that. They have incredible memories.
Yes.
They have elephant memories.
They do.
They will remember things forever. Mm-hmm. And so, they are always in the present, but they also always remember everything.
They're informed by the past.
They are formed by the past.
Yes.
And so that's where we, having that compassion, understand, well, this was their situation, or this is the way they're acting, so we need to help them because it might have been something in the past. Yeah. It doesn't matter anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You treat the present.
Right.
And however they are in the present. And they're such incredible, resilient, but elastic creatures. Mm-hmm. Because if you give them safety in that moment, they'll be like, okay, maybe today I like it. Yeah. And they'll be right. It's not an issue right now. Mm-hmm. So, or at least you can build on it. Right. To get to that.
And we have to remember that with humans too. Yeah. We tend to dwell on the past a little bit more and kind of, and
oh, we do. And we play it over and over.
Play with it way more.
And we live in it.
Yeah.
And so being around the horses teaches us to be here and now.
Yeah.
And we don't have to replay it, and that we can move forward.
Yes.
And that's a big thing in my teaching, is that I teach people how to clear their stuff while moving forward with their horse.
Yes. Yes. It can inform you. All that information can inform you, but it doesn't define you.
That's right.
And horses are experts at that. Like, yes, I had this thing and this has happened, and so now it's created a response in me in how I respond to these scenarios. However, it doesn't define me, and I'm going to make the judgment in the moment if that's information that I really is useful to me right now.
That's right.
If I'm safe, that's not a concern anymore. Right. I can let it go.
Well, and
if I'm not safe, it may be a concern I need to consider again.
Right. And that's the first part of the process of being around a horse is assessment.
Yeah.
But how can you have fair and honest assessment if you don't know what you're presenting into it? And so that's why it's so important to do that first day of the clinic, because then people become aware of who they are. Yeah. So once you are able to do your assessment, you can adapt.
Right.
And once you can adapt, you can apply.
Yes.
And through the whole thing, you've carried safety between the two of you, and now you have that internal connection.
Yeah.
So,
You're going to talk about that in your book, right?
Yeah. That is a big part of my book.
That really kind of covers it. That was the gist of what I really wanted to talk about, get your insight on. What do you feel like the horse community needs right now?
I just had 1,000 things
yeah,
going
yeah.
in my head. Like, well, which one do I pick?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, do we don't want to go with horses? No,
Yeah. Just horses. Yeah.
just horses. What do I think the community needs? This is a really interesting way to put it, but I think the community needs to know that they have permission of freedom of expression around the horses themselves. I find that when people come to the horses and they say, "Oh, you're going to be teaching me this connection," they get too kind and they forget to be themselves. And so having permission to be yourself, whoever you are,
right,
they're going to accept that.
Because
knowing that you can carry that further away from the barn. You can
right.
leave the barn having practiced being in your whole self.
Yes.
And so the value of that is unmeasurable.
Yes. I love it. I agree. They come in and there's this softening that they sort of are searching for, and it can actually become detrimental because it becomes incongruent. Now there's a masking behavior that begins.
That's right.
And so if you just are authentic with who you are right now in the moment,
totally.
then there isn't that masking behavior, and the horses will be suspicious if there's too much of that sort of turmoil. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think people just need to hang out with horses.
Yeah.
Because I think we'd have a better community.
Yeah. I agree.
And maybe a dog.
And maybe a dog or two.